Hi guys, welcome back to 30 Days to Your First Website Design, a Tuts Plus Premium course. I'm Ian Yates and we're now going to have a look at the Web Standards model. We'll begin as always by taking a quick look at what we're going to cover in this video. We're going to discuss what the Web Standards model is and why we strive to comply with it. We'll then take a look at our own project with regard to web standards. I'll then suggest some further reading as well as setting an assignment. Now, a few videos ago we glimpsed briefly at table-based layouts, what they were and why they were so dreadful. The Web Standards model aims to solve all the niggling problems manifested in table-based layouts, which typically included any styling inline, i.e. tangled up within the markup. By aiming to comply with web standards, by standardizing the way we build websites, we're making life easier for ourselves, but most importantly, making it clear for web browsers how they should treat our code. So what is this model of which I speak? Well, the standards model breaks aspects of web design into layers. There's structure, style, and behavior. And these are the fundamental components of any web project, and you'll be familiar with them in the form of HTML markup, which is your structure, CSS, which handles the styling, and JavaScript, which deals with any behavior on the front end of your web application. So why bother separating these three? What was wrong with the old methods? Well, there are several distinct advantages. Firstly, there's efficiency. By adhering to standards, you simply need much fewer lines of code. Ease of maintenance. Trawling through single bloated pages of illegible markup and repeated styling and lengthy JavaScript is just not pleasant. Then there's accessibility. Screen readers, for example, for people who are visually impaired, can read your page easily as the content isn't polluted by styling and scripting nonsense. Compatibility. By breaking your project into its composite elements, varying devices have a much better chance of rendering your web pages properly. You can even target individual devices using specific styling, for example. And then there's SEO. Standard compliant pages are easily crawled, understood, and the relevance therefore evaluated by search engine bots. Now let's take a look at our own project. We've covered the directory structure, but you should now have a clear idea of the reasoning behind the structure, like this. I'm just going to open this up in Coda again. So we had our index HTML, we had some basic structure, we introduced the head, and you can see that we had our styles referenced in CSS style sheets, and they're in a separate folder. So we've clearly in this structure managed to separate our structure, our styling, and our behavior. Now let's carry on a little bit with where we left off before we jump into the next video. I think it would probably be a good idea if I'm going to open this up in Google Chrome while we go, work a little bit on the testimonial area, our features area. So we'll add some markup. We've already got a small area here which is going to wrap our testimonials. So let's add some markup for the slides which are going to sit within that. First we'll add our slide itself. Now there are going to be several of these, and these are going to cycle once we've added the JavaScript necessary to do that. But for the time being, just while we work at our layout, we're just going to place one in the markup. If we refer back to our PSD, you'll see our testimonial comprised of some quotation marks, the testimonial itself, a little attribution there, plus our call to action, and then underneath the slide some small simple navigation which we'll use to navigate our way through them. So in terms of markup, we have our slide containing an h2 tag which has got our quote. We have the attribution in a span at the end of that, embedded sort of within it, and then the call to action, which is simply an anchor tag with the words see how within there. Now we'll also need the slide navigation, although this will be generated dynamically for the sake of styling it to begin with, let's just add that in under here. Now you can see that's just a div with a class of slide nav and 4 anchor tags, one of which is active. So that done, we can now go about styling it. So we'll quickly just Command and S and save that, and then we'll open up our CSS. Let's take a quick look at exactly what we've done in the browser there. That's not looking particularly exciting, but you can see exactly what's gone on. There's the call to action there. Alright. So to begin with, let's style our H2 heading. Now we were going to use Google Fonts, if you recall. And just open up the PSD. You'll recall that we were going to use a font called Lato, or Lato. I still don't know how to say it. So if I go over to Google Fonts, where are we? There it is. We'll open it in the web fonts. Now it's quite easy to see how we use it. We wanted the normal and the bold, if you remember, and it quite simply tells you here how to add this font. It's a CSS file, and it requests that you stick it in your head tags before anything else. Of course, we're going to have to declare the font before our own style sheets, which are going to continue to style them. So let's just add that, and we'll add also the Droid font while we're about it. There we go. So this is our Lato, which is the same little bit of syntax we were just offered up on the Google site, and this is the same sort of idea, but for our Droid serif font. So that's our fonts declared, so we can now go about using them in our style CSS just as we would any other font. So let's begin with an H2 declaration here, and we'll begin by simply saying that we want to use this Lato for our font family, and we want that's not a serif, it's a sans serif, of course. We could do with using the bold derivative of that. Why do I keep hitting that key there? That's frustrating. Okay, according to our design, that was at 58 pixels with a line height adhering to our baseline grid, if you recall back to that lesson, which is a multiple of 20, because our paragraphs work on 20 pixels of line height. That's at 60 pixels, and the color I'm going to have to go and grab from the PSD itself, so we'll open that up, and it was our dark green, if you recall that. Okay, so that's our H2. That's a general styling, and we're going to have to, of course, style our slide H2 in terms of its positioning and size slightly differently, but that's a good start. The Betty Biggins, our little attribution here, we could style that next. That should be fairly straightforward. So let's begin by adding a testimonial section here, and then I'm just going to grab some styling which I've prepared here just to make things slightly quicker for you. And you can see here I'm calling the Droid serif font. It's 18 pixels font size. It would ordinarily have inherited the bold from the H2 in which it's sitting, so we need to specify that it's a normal font weight, and this is going to be the italic version. So quickly just jumping back and refreshing the page, you'll see that we've very quickly achieved that result. Now the H2 itself, according to our design, is much smaller than the width of the slide. Having measured that, I happen to know that it is 560 pixels wide, and that we're going to need a margin on this left side of 60 pixels to the edge of the document. So that Where are we? Let's use that very quickly. First I'll have to save that, obviously. And there we go, it's looking much better. We have the 3 lines of text. Now, in order to add this speech mark here, I've used a graphic because the web font doesn't coincide 100% with the Droid serif that we've installed on our system. It was a much less fancy quotation mark, and that's not what I'm after. So I've altered the sprite sheet and added that as a graphic. Now we're going to use the interesting before pseudo element of our slide, and what that basically does is takes our slide element, this one, and it adds a sort of sub element, a little sort of dynamic element, the before element, to that, and we bring that into existence using content, which is currently nothing. We could put text or anything in there if we wanted, and we display it as a block of 35 pixels square. We're then going to position that absolutely, and in order for that to work, we first need to make sure that our slide has a position of relative, so that this will be positioned absolutely at the 10 pixels from the top and 0 pixels from the left of our slide. Now it's going to have a background using our sprite, and if we just go back to the sprite, I've measured across here 250 pixels from the side and 150 pixels from the top, and you can see that referred to here. We pull the sprite image 250 pixels left, and we pull it 150 pixels up, and we ask it not to repeat. So if I save that and I refresh the page, you'll notice our before pseudo element 35 by 35 pixels with our sprite as its background. Perfect. Now we're going to do something very similar for our call to action, which is currently just an anchor there, simply styled. I'm going to grab the styling quite quickly so that we can just race on with this. Here we go. Now this is it. We've given it a class of CTA, call to action, and we're asking for something very similar actually. It's going to be a block displayed element, so we can determine perfectly its width. It's 102 pixels wide. We're going to give it a padding on the top of 110 pixels, which means that it's going to effectively be a block, something like this. The padding at the top will give the text room for the graphic. We'll align the text in the middle of that 102 pixel width. Again, we're using the sprite as its background, and again I've measured exactly where it should be, so we have to shift the sprite image 220 pixels to the left, and it's at the top of our sprite, so that's fine. Again, identical typeface to the attribution there, Droid serif, 18 pixels, normal font weight and italic. We've got rid of the text decoration, which would otherwise have been a straight line, an underline under the linked text itself, and we're positioning it again absolutely to the right of the slide, although it is 80 pixels from the right of the slide, I should just mention, like so, and we're positioning it slightly up from the bottom of the slide as well. So if I save that and I refresh the page, you see exactly what we've got there. Our block element with padding at the top, typography exactly the same as this, and sitting neatly at the bottom and the right of the slide. Now it will take too long for me to style everything else here in this upper section while you watch, so for the time being we're going to leave it like that. Needless to say, I'm going to be styling these 4 links to emulate these links as we designed here. Before the next time, I'm going to just style these links for our primary navigation, and I'm going to make sure that this smile link, the main link, takes on the appearance of our logo, like so. Okay, so we're making good progress. I hope that was clear enough for you to follow along with. So now I think it's time for some further reading. So we're going to jump back into my presentation. Oh, we've already done this one, excuse me. Alright, have a look at what's said about the web standards model over on the World Wide Web Consortium wiki. If any organisation has a sound opinion on web standards, it's the guys who actually develop them. Next we have this. Take a look at HTML fundamentals. You really can't do much better than this article by Michael James Williams over on ActiveTuts. Now before we jump into the next video, I have an assignment for you. Keep going with our files. Continue to build the HTML and CSS as we've just done in this video. Next time on 30 Days to Your First Website Design, we're going to look a little more closely at markup and semantics. I'm Ian Yates, and from all of us here at Tuts Plus, thank you for watching.